Book 1, Chapter 9 of Letters of Travel. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Leaves from a Winter Notebook, 1895. We had walked abreast of the year from the very beginning, and that was when the first bloodroot came up between the patches of April snow, while yet the big drift at the bottom of the meadow held fast. In the shadow of the woods and under the blown pine needles, clots of snow lay till far into May, but neither the season nor the flowers took any note of them. And before we were well sure winter had gone, the lackeys of my Lord Baltimore, in their new liveries, came to tell us that summer was in the valley, and please might they nest at the bottom of the garden. Followed summer, angry, fidgety, and nervous, with the corn and tobacco to ripen in 5 short months, the pastures to reclothe, and the fallen leaves to hide away under new carpets. Suddenly, in the middle of her work, on a stuffy, still July day, she called a wind out of the northwest, a wind blown under an arch of steel-bellied clouds, a wicked, bitter wind, with a lacing of hail to it, a wind that came and was gone in less than 10 minutes, but blocked the roads with fallen trees, toppled over a barn, and blew potatoes out of the ground. When that was done, a white cloud shaped like a dumbbell whirled down the valley across the evening blue, roaring and twisting and twisting and roaring all alone by itself. A West Indian hurricane could not have been quicker on its feet than our little cyclone. And when the house rose a tiptoe, like a cockerel in the act to crow, and a 60-foot elm went by the board, and that which had been a dusty road became a roaring torrent, all in 3 minutes, we felt that the New England summer had Creole blood in her veins. She went away red-faced and angry to the last, slamming all the doors of the hills behind her. And Autumn, who is a lady, took charge. No pen can describe the turning of the leaves, the insurrection of the tree people against the waning year. A little maple began it, flaming blood red all of a sudden where he stood against the dark green of a pine belt. Next morning there was an answering signal from the swamp where the sumacs grow. 3 days later the hillsides as far as the eye could range were afire, and the roads paved with crimson and gold. Then a wet wind blew and ruined all the uniforms of that gorgeous army, and the oaks, who had held themselves in reserve, buckled on their dull and bronzed cuirasses and stood it out stiffly till the last blown leaf, till nothing remained but pencil shading of bare boughs, and one could see into the most private heart of the woods. Frost may be looked for till the middle of May and after the middle of September, so summer has little time for enamel work or leaf embroidery. Her sisters bring the gifts: spring windflowers, Solomon seal, Dutchman's breeches, Quaker ladies, and trailing arbutus that smell as divinely as the true May. Autumn has goldenrod and all the tribe of asters, pink, lilac, and creamy white, by the double armful. When these go, the curtain comes down, and whatever powers shift the scenery behind work without noise. In tropic lands you can hear the play of growth and decay at the back of the night silences. Even in England the tides of the winter air have a set and a purpose, but here they are dumb altogether. The very last piece of benchwork this season was the trailed end of a blackberry vine, most daringly conventionalized in hammered iron, flung down on the frosty grass an instant before people came to look. The blue bloom of the furnace was still dying along the central rib, and the side sprays were cherry red, even as they had been lifted from the charcoal. It was a detail, evidently, of some invisible gate in the woods, but we never found that workman, though he had left the mark of his cloven hoof as plainly as any strayed deer. In a week the heavy frosts with scythes and hammers had slashed and knocked down all the roadside growth and the kindly bushes, that veil the drop off the unfenced track. There, the seasons stopped a while. Autumn was gone, winter was not. We had time dealt out to us, mere clear, fresh time, grace days to enjoy. The white wooden farmhouses were banked round 2 feet deep with dried leaves or earth, and the choppers went out to get ready next year's stores of wood. Now, chopping is an art, and the chopper in all respects an artist. He makes his own axe helve, and for each man there is but one perfect piece of wood in all the world. This he never finds, but the likeliest substitute is trimmed and balanced and poised to that ideal. One man I know has evolved very nearly the weapon of Umslopogamus. It is almost straight, lapped at the butt with leather, amazingly springy, and carries a 2-edged blade for splitting and chopping. If his demon be with him, and what artist can answer for all his moods, he will cause a tree to fall upon any stick or stone that you choose, uphill or down, to the right or to the left. Artist-like, however, he explains that that is nothing. Any fool can play with a tree in the open, but it needs the craftsman to bring a tree down in thick timber and do no harm. To see an 80-foot maple 4 feet in the butt, dropped as deftly as a fly is cast, in the only place where it will not outrage the feelings and swipe off the tops of 50 juniors, is a revelation. White pine, hemlock, and spruce share this country with maples, black and white birches, and beech. Maple seems to have few preferences, and the white birches straggle and shiver on the outskirts of every camp, but the pines hold together in solid regiments, sending out skirmishers to invade a neglected pasture on the first opportunity. There is no overcoat warmer than the pines in a gale, when the woods for miles round are singing like cathedral organs, and the first snow of the year powders the rock ledges. The mosses and lichens, green, sulphur, and amber, stud the copper floor of needles, where the feathery ground pine runs aimlessly to and fro along the ground, spelling out broken words of half-forgotten charms. There are checkerberries on the outskirts of the wood, where the partridge he's a ruffed grouse, really dines, and by the deserted logging roads toadstools of all colours sprout on the decayed stumps. Wherever a green or blue rock lifts from the hillside, the needles have been packed and matted round its base, till, when the sunshine catches them, stone and setting together, look no meaner than turquoise in dead gold. The woods are full of colour, belts and blotches of it, the colours of the savage, red, yellow, and blue. Yet in their lodges there is very little life, for the wood people do not readily go into the shadows. The squirrels have their business among the beeches and hickories by the roadside, where they can watch the traffic and talk. We have no grey ones hereabouts. They are good to eat and suffer for it, but 5 reds live in a hickory hard by, and no weather puts them to sleep. The woodchuck, a marmot and a strategist, makes his burrow in the middle of a field, where he must see you ere you see him. Now and again a dog manages to cut him off his base, and the battle is worth crossing fields to watch. But the woodchuck turned in long ago, and will not be out till April. The coon lives, well, no one seems to know particularly where Brer Coon lives, but when the hunter's moon is large and full, he descends into the cornlands, and men chase him with dogs for his fur, which makes the finest kind of overcoat, and his flesh, which tastes like chicken. He cries at night sorrowfully, as though a child were lost. They seem to kill, for one reason or other, everything that moves in this land. Hawks, of course; eagles for their rarity; foxes for their pelts; red-shouldered blackbirds and Baltimore orioles because they're pretty; and the other small things for sport, French fashion. You can get a rifle of a kind for 12 shillings, and if your neighbour be fool enough to post notices forbidding hunting and fishing, you naturally seek his woods. So the country is very silent and unalive. There are, however, bears within a few miles, as you will see from this notice picked up at the local tobacconist's. Johnny, get your gun. Bear hunt. As the bears are too numerous in the town of Peltyville Corners, Vermont, the hunters of the surrounding towns are invited to participate in a grand hunt to be held on Blue Mountains in the town of Peltyville Corners, Vermont, Wednesday, November 8th, if pleasant. If not, first fine day. Come one, come all. They went. But it was the bear that would not participate. The notice was printed at somebody's electric print establishment. Queer mixture, isn't it? The bear does not run large as a rule, but he has a weakness for swine and calves, which brings punishment. 12 hours' rail and a little marching take you up to the moose country, and 20-odd miles from here, as the crow flies, you come to virgin timber where trappers live, and where there is a lost pond that many have found once but can never find again. Men who are of one blood with sheep have followed their friends and the railway along the river valleys where the towns are. Across the hills the inhabitants are few, and outside their state little known. They withdraw from society in November, if they live on the uplands, coming down in May as the snow gives leave. Not much more than a generation ago these farms made their own clothes, soap and candles, and killed their own meat thrice a year, beef, veal and pig, and sat still between times. Now they buy shop-made clothes, patent soaps and kerosene, and it's among their tents that the huge red and gilt biographies of presidents, and the £20 family Bibles with illuminated marriage registers, mourning cards, baptismal certificates, and hundreds of genuine steel engravings sell best. Here, too, off the main travelled roads, the wandering quack, patent electric pills, nerve cures, etc., divides the field with the seed and fruit man and the seller of cattle boluses. They dose themselves a good deal, I fancy, for it is a poor family that does not know all about nervous prostration. So the quack drives a pair of horses and a gaily painted wagon with a hood, and sometimes takes his wife with him. Once only have I met a pedlar afoot. He was an old man shaken with palsy, and he pushed a thing exactly like a pauper's burial cart, selling pins, tape, scents, and flavourings. You helped yourself, for his hands had no direction, and he told a long tale in which the deeding away of a farm to one of his family was mixed up with pride at the distances he still could cover daily. As much as 6 miles sometimes. He was no Lear, as the gift of the farm might suggest, but sealed of the tribe of the Wandering Jew, a tremulous old giddy-gaddy. There are many such rovers, gelders of colts and the like, who work a long beat, south to Virginia almost, and north to the frontier, paying with talk and gossip for their entertainment. Yet tramps are few, and that is well, for the American article answers almost exactly to the vagrant and criminal tribes of India, being a predatory ruffian who knows too much to work. Bad places to beg in after dark on a farm, very, is Vermont. Gypsies pitch their camp by the river in the spring, and cooper horses in the manner of their tribe. They have the gypsy look and some of the old gypsy names, but say they are largely mixed with Gentile blood. Winter has chased all these really interesting people south, and in a few weeks, if we have anything of a snow, the back farms will be unvisited save by the doctor's hooded sleigh. It is no child's play to hold a practice here through the winter months, when the drifts are really formed, and a pair can drop in up to their saddle pads. 4 horses a day some of them use, and use up, for they are good men. Now, in the big silence of the snow, is born, perhaps, not a little of that New England conscience which her children write about. There is much time to think, and thinking is a highly dangerous business. Conscience, fear, undigested reading, and, it may be, not too well-cooked food, have full swing. A man, and more particularly a woman, can easily hear strange voices, the word of the Lord rolling between the dead hills, may see visions and dream dreams, get revelations and an outpouring of the Spirit, and end such things have been, lamentably enough, in those big houses by the Connecticut River, which have been tenderly christened the Retreat. Hate breeds as well as religion, the deep, in-striking hate between neighbours that is born of 100 little things added up, brooded over, and hatched by the stove when 2 or 3 talk together in the long evenings. It would be very interesting to get statistics of revivals and murders, and find out how many of them have been committed in the spring. But for undistracted people, winter is one long delight to the eye. In other lands one knows the snow as a nuisance that comes and goes, and is sorely manhandled and messed at the last. Here it lies longer on the ground than any crop, from November to April sometimes, and for 3 months life goes to the tune of sleigh bells, which are not, as a southern visitor once hinted, ostentation, but safeguards. The man who drives without them is not loved. The snow is a faithful barometer, foretelling good sleighing or stark confinement to barracks. It is all the manure the stony patches receive. It cloaks the ground and prevents the frost bursting pipes. It is the best, I had almost written the only, road maker in the States. On the other side, it can rise up in the night and bid the people sit still as the Egyptians. It can stop mails, wipe out all timetables, extinguish the lamps of 20 towns, and kill man within sight of his own doorstep, or hearing of his cattle unfed. No one who has been through even so modified a blizzard as New England can produce talks lightly of the snow. Imagine 48 hours of roaring wind, the thermometer well down towards zero, scooping and gouging across 100 miles of newly fallen snow. The air is full of stinging shot, and at 10 yards the trees are invisible. The foot slides on a reef, polished and black as obsidian, where the wind has skimmed an exposed corner of road down to the dirt ice of early winter. The next step ends hip deep and over, for here an unseen wall is banking back the rush of the singing drifts. A scarped edge rises sheer across the road. The wind shifts a point or two, and all sinks down like sand in an hourglass, leaving a pothole of whirling whiteness. There is a lull, and you can see the surface of the fields settling furiously in one direction, a tide that spurts from between the tree boles. The hollows of the pastures fill while you watch, empty, fill, and discharge anew. The rock ledges show the bare flank of a storm-chased liner for a moment, and whitening duck under. Irresponsible snow devils dance by the lee of a barn where 3 gusts meet, or stagger out into the open till they are cut down by the main wind. At the worst of the storm there is neither heaven nor earth, but only a swizzle into which a man may be brewed. Distances grow to nightmare scale, and that which in the summer was no more than a minute's bareheaded run is half an hour's gasping struggle, each foot won between the lulls. Then do the heavy timbered barns talk like ships in a cross sea, beam working against beam. The winter's hay is ribbed over with long lines of snow dust blown between the boards, and far below in the byre the oxen crash their horns and moan uneasily. The next day is blue, breathless, and most utterly still. The farmers shovel away to their beasts, bind with chains their large ploughshares to their heaviest wood sled, and take of oxen as many as Allah has given them. These they drive, and the dragging share makes a furrow in which a horse can walk, and the oxen, by force of repeatedly going in up to their bellies, presently find foothold. The finished road is a deep double gutter between 3-foot walls of snow, where by custom the heavier vehicle has the right of way. The lighter man, when he turns out, must drop waist deep and haul his unwilling beast into the drift, leaving Providence to steady the sleigh. In the towns, where they choke and splutter and gasp, the big snow turns to horsepondine. With us it stays still, but wind, sun, and rain get to work on it, lest the texture and colour should not change daily. Rain makes a granulated crust over all, in which white shagreen the trees are faintly reflected. Heavy mists go up and down, and create a sort of mirage till they settle and pack round the iron-tipped hills, and then you know how the moon must look to an inhabitant of it. At twilight again the beaten-down ridges and laps and folds of the uplands take on the likeness of wet sand, some huge and melancholy beach at the world's end, and when day meets night it is all goblin country. To westward, the last of the spent day, rust red and pearl, illimitable levels of shore waiting for the tide to turn again. To eastward, black night among the valleys, and on the rounded hill slopes a hard glaze that is not so much light as snail slime from the moon. Once or twice, perhaps, in the winter, the northern lights come out between the moon and the sun, so that to the two unearthly nights is added the leap and flare of the aurora borealis. In January or February come the great ice storms, when every branch, blade, and trunk is coated with frozen rain, so that you can touch nothing truly. The spikes of the pines are sunk into pear-shaped crystals, and each fence post is miraculously hilted with diamonds. If you bend a twig, the icing cracks like varnish, and a half-inch branch snaps off at the lightest tap. If wind and sun open the day together, the eye cannot look steadily at the splendour of this jewellery. The woods are full of the clatter of arms, the ringing of bucks' horns in flight, the stampede of mailed feet up and down the glades, and a great dust of battle is puffed out into the open, till the last of the ice is beaten away, and the cleared branches take up their regular chant. Again, the mercury drops 20 and more below zero, and the very trees swoon. The snow turns to French chalk, squeaking under the heel, and their breath cloaks the oxen in rime. At night a tree's heart will break in him with a groan. According to the books, the frost has split something, but it is a fearful sound, this grunt as of a man stunned. Winter that is winter in earnest does not allow cattle and horses to play about the fields, so everything comes home, and since no share can break the ground to any profit for some 5 months, there would seem to be very little to do. As a matter of fact, country interests at all seasons are extensive and peculiar, and the day is not long enough for them when you take out that time which a self-respecting man needs to turn himself around in. Consider. The solid, undisturbed hours stand about one like ramparts. At a certain time the sun will rise. At another hour, equally certain, he will set. This much we know. Why, in the name of reason, therefore, should we vex ourselves with vain exertions? An occasional visitor from the cities of the plains comes up panting to do things. He is set down to listen to the normal beat of his own heart, a sound that very few men have heard. In a few days, when the lather of impatience has dried off, he ceases to talk of getting there or being left. He does not desire to accomplish matters right away, nor does he look at his watch from force of habit, but keeps it where it should be, in his stomach. At the last he goes back to his beleaguered city, unwillingly, partially civilized, soon to be re-savaged by the clash of 1,000 wars whose echo does not reach here. The air which kills germs dries out the very newspapers. They might be of tomorrow or 100 years ago. They have nothing to do with today. The long, full, sunlit today. Our interests are not on the same scale as theirs, perhaps, but much more complex. The movement of a foreign power, an alien sleigh on this Pontic shore, must be explained and accounted for, or this public's heart will burst with unsatisfied curiosity. If it be Buck Davis, with the white mare that he traded his colt for, and the practically new sleigh robe that he bought at the Sewell auction, why does Buck Davis, who lives on the river flats, cross our hills? Unless Murder Hollow be blockaded with snow, or unless he has turkeys for sale. But Buck Davis with turkeys would surely have stopped here, unless he were selling a large stock in town. A wail from the sacking at the back of the sleigh tells the tale. It is a winter calf, and Buck Davis is going to sell it for $1 to the Boston market, where it will be turned into potted chicken. This leaves the mystery of his change of route unexplained. After 2 days sitting on tenterhooks, it is discovered obliquely that Buck went to pay a dooryard call on Orson Butler, who lives on the Satyr, where the wind and the bald granite scours fight it out together. Kirkdemming had brought Orson news of a fox at the back of Black Mountain, and Orson's eldest son, going to Murder Hollow with wood for the new barn floor that the widow Amidon is laying down, told Buck that he might as well come round to talk to his father about the pig. But old man Butler meant fox hunting from the first, and what he wanted to do was to borrow Buck's dog, who had been duly brought over with the calf and left on the mountain. No, old man Butler did not go hunting alone, but waited till Buck came back from town. Buck sold the calf for $1.25, and not for 75 cents, as was falsely asserted by interested parties. Then the two went after the fox together. This much learned, everyone breathes freely, if life has not been complicated in the meantime by more strange countermarchings. 5 or 6 sleighs a day we can understand, if we know why they are abroad, but any metropolitan rush of traffic disturbs and excites. End of Leaves from a Winter Notebook. Recording by Tim Bulkley of BigBible.org. End of From Tideway to Tideway. From Letters of Travel by Rudyard Kipling.